What's up, everybody? We should be live. Hopefully, everything's coming out good. If there's sound and everything, let me just look at the comments. I'm with my man Ryan here. Show him some love. Drop some comments for him. I'm just gonna
What's
go
up,
to the group.
everybody?
I'm gonna go to the group real quick just to see comments that are going on. And just excuse me if there's any hiccups here because it's my first time using this software. Um, if you're on live, give me some hearts. Give me hashtag team live on replay. Give me hashtag team replay. If you have any questions during this interview, just drop them, and then we'll get answered. All right, cool. Let's get into this. So,
Awesome.
Ryan, I didn't do too much research into you purposely because I wanted to, have this free flow and like almost like this is like our first date, so to speak, even though it's not a date. But so quickly, can you just? I know you have an awesome side hustle journal, right? Is that what it's called?
Yep.
Okay. So can you just let us know some of your accomplishments and where you're at now, and then we'll get a little bit into your story.
Yeah, for sure. So, I guess about 10 months ago, I launched a product on Kickstarter called the Side Hustle Journal. Raised about 14,000 on that with absolutely no audience at all. That was my entry into that space, was with that product. I kind of wanted to reverse engineer that process, and instead of kind of starting small with a blog or something and just like working my way up and get maybe a subscriber or a follower little by little, I decided to try to come in with a product right off the bat. And so that's what I did. It was extremely difficult and extremely tough, and maybe not the route I would recommend for everybody, because I had to hustle my ass off to even raise that 14,000. But it was cool. And since then, another thing I learned from the Kickstarter was I didn't know anybody. So that was part of the me going into a space and not really having a presence. Like, I didn't have friends that were entrepreneurial. I didn't grow up around people that were entrepreneurial. So when I did this Kickstarter, I said, man, it would have been so much more beneficial if I would have known people like in this space that could have helped me out. Because I mean, I didn't have anybody that I could lean on. I didn't have not a single person I could say, hey man, post this on your Facebook page. I didn't know anybody that had anything like that. So I stepped back and I looked at that. I was like, all right, how can I build my network? And I said, okay, I'm going to start a podcast, and I'm going to meet the type of people that I want to meet. So that's what I did. I selfishly started a podcast to benefit me and only me. And it's kind of flipped around. And not only is it benefiting me, but it's growing and getting its own legs. And I think reaching people in over 75 countries now. So it's rocking and rolling.
Okay. So that Kickstarter, how long ago was it?
It was about 10 months ago. It was November of last year.
Okay. So what is, give me a quick history on like what got you into entrepreneurship, what got you into the Kickstarter. Like, I think you're living the digital nomad lifestyle. Am I correct?
No, I'm actually living the opposite of the digital nomad lifestyle. I am working a 9 to 5 still. So yeah. So I'm a supply chain manager for a big chemical company by day. But back to your question on like, how did I get into this? So right now I would say, how did I get into like having a side hustle? And that was, if we go all the way back, it would be July of 2016. And I was sitting on a couch, which is about 6 feet behind me. And it was a Friday night. I was sitting there and I was like browsing around, and somehow I started looking at plane tickets to like random ass places around the world. And I came across a plane ticket to Nairobi, Kenya for $750. And I was like, that sounds too good to be true. Now I know it's not too uncommon, but at the time I was like, holy shit, like $750, I can go all the way to Africa. I was like, sign me up. So I bought a plane ticket with no plan at all. About 3 months later, so I bought it. That was in July. I bought the plane ticket was for around Thanksgiving of that year. So fast forward about 3 months from the time I purchased it, and I said I should plan this. So I did plan it, and I ended up going to Kenya and Tanzania. I did a solo adventure, and I could go on about how amazing it was, but I'll kind of go to why is this an origin story for me? So I'm over there and I'm meeting so many people that are just like traveling the world, doing really cool stuff. Lot of different ways people are doing that. Some of the people like sold everything they had and were just traveling the world. Some people had these great motivational stories about a friend that passed away, and it really made them realize they didn't want to work the rest of their life. Some people were on long vacations, like myself. Some people had businesses and were like working remotely on a beach in Zanzibar, probably the most beautiful beach in the world. And I didn't know like what it meant for me at that time, but I knew I wanted to figure out how to put myself in a position to where I could do that if I so choose. I didn't even know if I wanted to like, I still don't know if I want to just like quit everything and just like do the digital nomad lifestyle. I don't 100% know yet, to be honest, but I knew I wanted to be able to have the freedom to make that choice if it came down to it. So
Gotcha.
I got back to the US and really just kind of dove into this. I had no background in business, podcasting, online blogging, never had a website in my life. And so I dove in head first, built my first website, played around with that idea for about 6 months, and then really said, okay, I'm going to go into this side hustle space. I have been successful with this first little business that I built in that 6-month time period. And people were asking me like, how did I do it? How did I find time? Because, you know, my job is, I don't want to say it's high profile in the company, but in a short amount of time, I've been able to work myself up the corporate ladder pretty quickly. And so I would, you know, I'm traveling all around the world, doing things, managing big projects. And people would say like, how did you manage it all? So that's how the journal came to be, because all I did was kind of document that process on how was I managing my life, all this stuff. And yeah, so that's kind of how that gets us back up to the previous kind of timeline.
Gotcha. And what's up to everybody? I can't see for some reason who's leaving. I can see Marie. What's up, Marie? Daniel, Deshauna, Milo. What's up, guys?
What's up, everyone?
Deshauna, you're actually starting a journal too. Okay, so I guess that leads us into the next question. So this is just for her, I guess. So like creating a journal, like what is that process like?
Yeah, it's I guess it kind of depends on what you want to do. I had a really custom journal with all the specifications on it were custom, from the material to the straps to the paper to, you know, everything you name it. I worked with manufacturers overseas in China to develop that. End up paying a little bit more than I wanted to for it, but what I learned with China is you pay for what you get. So I went with the highest price manufacturer actually out of all the ones that I was working with. But besides that, it's just about like anything, man. It's about iteration. So you come up with like some specs and some ideas of what you want, and then you iterate on it. They send you samples, and then you iterate on it, and then you iterate on it. And then you have something that you would be happy with putting out into the world. So like if you condense like 4 months worth of time into that little bit, that's what you would get.
Cool. So going back into the podcast now, how long ago did you start it?
March 28th.
Of this year?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. How many episodes are you doing a week?
Well, the first week I released one every single day, so 7, and I've released 2 a week since then.
Okay, gotcha. How's the process? So just so people get some context, because I have some people here who are about to launch a podcast soon or on the works with me, helping them launch a podcast. How much has that changed like your business or your personal life, or positioned you for whatever you want to do, or even your book, like sales of your book and such?
I would say the biggest benefit for me was exactly what I wanted to get out of it, and that was meeting the people. So I actually have to kind of go on to the, like, it's benefiting me by meeting people. I've had this idea in my head for like the past year and a half for this business, this project. And I'm actually partnering with one of my guests from my podcast that I met him through the podcast, ended up meeting up with him in DC about 2 months after we did the interview. We clicked really good. Now we're working on this project together that we hope to launch early next year. So that's been the biggest benefit for me. And that's exactly what I wanted out of it. And besides that, I don't think I think the benefits are coming and I'm not really seeing them yet. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I know that if you're coming into podcasts because you think you're about to like hit the moon in about 2 months, like you've got a rude awakening coming, because I don't think that's how this medium works. But I've been just stoked to see it organically grow. Like the podcast host that I use is called Simplecast, and they've got like this map where you can see around the world, like where all your listeners are. And the more listeners you get in a certain place, the bigger the dot gets. And it's just so damn cool to see that map like just fill up with dots all in Africa and Asia and China. So, I mean, it's coming. The listenership is growing, but it's a slow process. But I think you have to be into podcasting for the long run. Like, it's not something you can get everything that it can give you in 4 months.
Yeah. And Marie, yeah, you're right. You got to be the best in your industry. And podcasting does take a long time to build trust with your audience. That is 100% sure true, because I know for sure, even from my experience from listening to podcasts, if you're not getting value, you'll delete the podcast and you'll just stop listening to it, because there's so many good podcasts out there that people are only listening to things as a routine. So that's cool. It's funny because do you know J. Trevor Chapman?
I've heard the name, yes.
So
I don't know in particular.
He had a #1 podcast. And I'll answer your question in 1 second, Marie, or I'll ask him real quick. So he had a #1 podcast. He beat out like Gary Vaynerchuk, Oprah, like all these big names. And it's because he was utilizing promoting the podcast to worldwide, while everyone else is just focusing on domestic. And like you were saying, how there's people listening to around the world. And like a lot of these messages are pretty universal.
No, so here's a interesting fact. So I haven't looked at this stat in probably about 3 or 4 weeks, so I don't know if it's still true. But for the longest time, up until 3 or 4 weeks ago at least, the 5th most listened to country on my podcast was Mongolia, which like still blows me away. Like this country in between China and Russia. I mean, there was just like, and it was cool, man. It was like a virus almost. Like you could like zoom in on the country and you could see like one listener. And then a few weeks later, you would see a couple more dots. And, you know, it's like organic reach. Like that person's telling somebody else about it. And you could just see these dots kind of start appearing around in Mongolia. And it was cool. And so, yeah, I mean, it really can organically spread pretty fast if you have a unique message. And I don't necessarily even think it's the message that has to be unique. You have to figure out some way to differentiate yourself, whether that be the message or the delivery, or so delivery being like, are you doing interviews? Are you doing like a read, like a story read or something like that? Like that delivery mechanism for your podcast. I think there's a couple ways you can differentiate yourself.
Gotcha. Have you used Libsyn before? Because Marie was asking Simplecast versus Libsyn. I haven't used Simplecast.
I have not used Libsyn. I went straight in with Simplecast just based on really a couple things. They have a amazing embeddable media player that looks flawless. Yeah. If you want to see what it looks like, you can go to my blog and check that out. And they have unlimited downloads for they just have one flat rate. It's $12 a month, unlimited uploads or downloads, whatever the hell you want to call it. Okay. Yeah. And support's been good. I've only needed them like twice, but it's been good. So nothing but good things from me.
Does the player, the podcast player, because one thing I don't like about Libsyn is, so I read a lot of blogs online, and if they have a podcast player online, I won't listen to it because I'm so used to speeding up podcasts, like at least 2 times speed. Because I feel like if I don't listen to a podcast fast, I'm just wasting time.
Yeah.
So like, do they have that feature? Because Libsyn doesn't, and I'm kind of pissed. I already emailed them about it, but
actually, I don't know. If somebody wants to go check the my website's gritandhustle.co, and in the top you can see podcast and then click episodes. I don't know. It looks good. I mean, you can change the colors of it and things like that. I know you can skip ahead and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if you can change the speed there on the player. You may be able to though.
Okay. Because that's a big thing for me. Like I always feel like I gotta save time. Milo asked, are you spending ad dollars promoting the podcast, or is it all organic?
So I did in the very beginning, and maybe I suck. Maybe my podcast sucks, but I didn't feel like I was getting a bang for my buck. I actually wrote about this. I'm pretty sure I wrote about this I wrote this big 26,000 word blog post on how to start a podcast. And in that, I kind of give some specifics on how much I spent, but I think it was like $100 and I got like 60 clicks onto the ad to go to iTunes. So to me, it wasn't worth it. And I was targeting actually one of my competitors in the space for, he has a Facebook audience that you can target. And I still didn't get much click through. And so.
Okay. Gotcha. I mean, what I've seen people do is they target, so let's say you interview just Tony Robbins, whatever, you target his audience and you have him as like the ad creative. And you can get fancy with targeting. Like you can target third world countries and it could be really cheap and people will still listen to it, download it. And that's how people boost up their numbers, whatever. I don't know if that's good. That's the type of listener you want, but that's just a strategy. So Marie asked for your blog. His blog is gritandhustle.co. It's a really nice website, dude. I really like it.
Thanks, man.
Cool. So let me see. Any more questions here? How do you target people with your podcast? That's what Marie asked.
I don't think you can. So if you want to target people with your podcast, it's just through your content. If you want to do paid advertising, then the options are endless. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, just to help you with that, I mean, it would probably be just leveraging your guest audiences or promoting it. I see some people get success with Medium. I don't know if you tried that.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, because Medium's a very like high level type blog platform. And you can just have it, you discuss a topic and you're like, if you want to hear more in detail, just visit my podcast at the bottom. Because a lot of Medium readers are podcast listeners. All right, any more comments here? Man, Marie, I love the engagement. All right. Do you have an intro and outro process?
Yeah, I have yes and no. So I kind of have multiple sections of the intro. So I have basically 2 sections within my podcast template that are kind of standard. They're always there. And then I do a what I call like a snippet. So probably between like 8 and 15 second clip of the guest speaking. And I always include that at the very, very beginning. And then right after that, I go into one of those standard introductions. And then it goes to, if you're familiar with like ClickFunnels and Russell Brunson, and if you've ever read Expert Secrets, he talks about something called the Title of Liberty. So then I have kind of the Title of Liberty built into my introduction, and then it goes into what I call the episode specific introduction, which is me introducing the guest and kind of prefacing what we're about to talk in. So
Gotcha.
To recap that, it's quick snippet at the beginning, then me, then what I call the Title of Liberty, which is just trying to like rally the troops kind of, and then an episode specific introduction, and then it fades into that episode.
Gotcha. So it's all just pre-framing, hyping them up for the episode, which is like super important because there might be something in that episode someone wants, but if you don't kind of like tell them that it's coming, then they won't like listen to the end,
Yeah,
right.
and I'm very specific in the type of guest that I bring on. So when somebody comes to my podcast, they know what to expect. Like, so to give a little context there, so I have 2 criteria to be on my podcast. You're either still working a 9-to-5 job and you have a side hustle that's generating at least $2,000, or within the past 3 years, you've transitioned from a side hustle to it being your full-time job. And I don't deviate from, I lie. I deviated one time from that. But I have about a 99% chance that is going to be the type of person that you hear on my podcast. So people know what to expect. They know they're not hearing Tony Robbins, for example, when they come to my podcast.
Yeah.
So it makes it a little bit more difficult too, because I rarely get to leverage a guest to increase my audience, because most of these people, besides their family, that's the only thing they have on Facebook.
Yeah. But I like that because then it's more like unique stories. It's stories people never heard before, and it's more experience. So, Marie asked, how are you monetizing your podcast? I'm sure it's your journal, or are you doing like, are you monetizing a lot, or is it just more you're just building your brand right now?
Yeah. So right now I'm not really trying to monetize the podcast at all. I said that I'm not going to try to monetize it till I get to 100 episodes. So I said that from the very beginning. Like I said, I'm not going to do any sponsors. I will say like, hey, head over to gritandhustle.co to download your free copy of the Side Hustle Journal, because I have it on there as a lead magnet, the PDF. So I do things like that in there to help build my list and things. But right now I'm not really trying to go after the audience what I'll say hard, right? So trying to do a hard sell or something like that on the podcast.
Okay, cool. A little bit off the podcast here, but does Shauna ask, what is the process for a Kickstarter?
Yeah. Long? No, seriously though. So I've done the Kickstarter and I'm actually helping someone do a Kickstarter right now, and they just text me asking me to review their video script since we started this.
That's the most important part, right? Like the video.
Yeah, absolutely. That's for sure the most important part. And if I can give any advice quickly on a Kickstarter, it's start early. Give yourself at least 3 months lead time going into that, knowing that you need to do outreach to a lot of people. So when I say I hustled my ass off, I at least emailed 400 people, cold emails, asking them if I could write a blog post for their website, if I could be on their podcast, if they could just promote it out of the goodness of their heart, like tons and tons and tons of emails. And I got probably about a 4% reply on those emails, which, that's what I would expect. That's why you have to send so damn many of them. So send it out. And the reason it's important to start early, not only because you have to send a lot of emails, it's because when you do land these people, if you land anyone with a decent sized blog or something like that, a lot of people have like content calendars and things like that. So they're not getting a piece of content and publishing it tomorrow. They're publishing it in like 3 months. So you got to get ahead of that. So for example, the biggest blog that I got on posted about my journal a month after the Kickstarter was over. So
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Marie, early. She has so many questions. You got to hop on her podcast, it seems like. Cause yeah. So I had a quick question. And it just passed my mind. So let's just go to Marie's question. How frequently are you posting on social media about your side hustle? Or do you have side hustles right now, actually? Like, how many side hustles are you going on for you?
Yeah. So I have all of the podcast, the blog, the journal, all that is like one to me. Like this all is the same ecosystem. It's all on the same site. It's all under the same brand. All of that is one and the same. So that's my primary focus right now. And then I've got this project that I'm working on, which is more of and it will be a Kickstarter as well, surprisingly, but it's a much bigger project, a much more ambitious project than a journal. It's got some software development into it as well. So that'll be coming down the road.
And just to go back to, I remember my question now. You said your Kickstarter, it was like pretty genius how you reached out to all these people to get on their blogs, because I was recently at an event this weekend, the Dream 100, and Russell Brunson spoke. I got to speak with him in person, first of all. He's like the most humble, like awesome guy. But he said, and his new book is going to be called Traffic Secrets. And he pretty much went over the gist of it. And he broke down the 3 types of traffic. You either got paid traffic, which is traffic that you pay for, just like it says. Then you have traffic you earn. So if you have more time than money, everyone who's listening, you can earn your traffic by, reaching out to people, doing interviews, doing podcasts. This is stuff that you earn by giving people value up front. And then the 3rd type of traffic is traffic that you own. So usually paid traffic and traffic you earn go to traffic that you own. And that's more of a longer life cycle.
Yep.
And just so people know, like if you have more time than money, you can earn so much traffic. You just got to, put in that work, kind of like you did with the Kickstarter. So let's do a question. We got a good question from Nick Hill. I hope I'm saying that right, dude. How do you maintain your content quality on your podcast, and not just content, but your voice consistency in terms of loudness and tonality? How do you manage? I'm sure like it took you a while to find your voice as well. It's not like you at the first episode.
So I'll answer it from a kind of theoretical standpoint and also from a technical standpoint. So like, how do you maintain like that tonality and the level and things like that? I was actually terrified of this in the beginning because I don't want to put something out into the world. This is just kind of the perfectionist in me, but I don't want to put something out into the world if it doesn't sound good. So I literally had a fear in the beginning that someone was going to hit play on the podcast in their car and the guest was going to be really loud and then I was going to be really low.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is so terrifying. But there's ways in editing. So I use Adobe Audition for all my editing. And there's a functionality called match loudness in Adobe Audition, and it basically just brings both audio tracks to whatever predefined loudness you set. Like I have mine set to -16 lufs. So that's how you can do that from a technical standpoint, and from a theoretical standpoint. I don't know. I think you just have to not overthink it and just be natural when you come into it. I think if you think about it too much, you're gonna sound like a damn robot or something. And that's why when I kind of like when you came on here, you're like, I didn't research you very much. I just want it to be a good conversation. That's kind of my approach as well. I research the guest enough. So if they suck at interviewing, I have enough questions in the bank. But typically I don't need to go to my questions a lot. Typically the conversation will just flow naturally and the questions will just appear based on the conversation.
Gotcha. And yeah, you use Adobe too, Marie? Yeah, I love Adobe. If you guys want to know, like what you said, the -16 lufs for match loudness is pretty much industry standard. I don't know if you've used Adobe, Nick Hill. I hope I'm saying that right. But yeah, just let me know. No one likes listening to boring people. Exactly. That is 100% true. Let's see.
And if you want to see, if you haven't used Audition and you want to know how to do this match loudness, seriously, go check out that blog post. I have it in detail.
Yeah, link that in the comments for people after this.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a big blog post, you said, right? Like 2,000 words or something, or
26,000.
26,000 words. Oh gosh, dude, that's more than I wrote this year. Okay. So do you write a blog for all of your podcast episodes, or like what is your process? Because I know some people like that is a process, like a thing behind their not taking action. Like they don't want to write. So what is your, like, do you have a hack for that, or like how are you writing your show notes?
Yeah, so I'm actually posting that link in the comment section right now. There it is.
Boom.
So if anybody wants to check that out, just go look in the comments. You'll see the blog post. It's so long because I go into so much detail. Yeah. But to your question about the blog post, yes, I do a blog for every single episode, but here's kind of my hack for that. I create a template. Just like when you're editing, creating a template makes it quicker. So I ask, basically I'll just say like 5, like who is it? What do they do? Why should I listen? How can I learn more from them? And where can I find their website? So literally those are like the headings. And I just feel actually, so I lie. I did the first 35 episodes myself, and then I outsourced part of it. So in one of the pieces that I outsourced was the blog. And so the guy who does it for me, it makes it easy for outsourcing as well, because literally he's just answering a couple questions based on the audio. So that's how I do it. Gotcha.
Yeah, Nick Hill. I used to use Audacity too, but I actually hate Audacity. Adobe Audition is just way better as far as like small effects things you can do, like canceling out noise, and like I like their compression, and they have good like. Just like if I need to get technical at all, I can get technical. Do you do a new blog every time? Wait, I think we just asked that.
We did that one.
Just use the transcription. I mean, do you add the transcription to the episode as well?
I don't do a transcription right now. No.
Okay. Sorry, my dog. It was like thundering here, and he's like scared, so I had him let him out. Okie doke. So,
where do you live at?
In Florida. There's like a tropical storm going on right now. Probably not, but it's like really, it's Florida. The weather's crazy out here. So I want to get more into, these are my favorite 3 questions to ask everybody, because let's get into it. So number 1 is, what is your, like, the number 1 book that changed your life? What's up, Lindsay? Hold up. Lindsay's here. So it's funny because Lindsay told me that he was having lunch with you today.
Yeah, and, that Lindsay.
I was like, what a small world.
Yeah.
What'd you guys eat for lunch?
We had some shitty Mexican food. Yeah.
Oh man,
So
that's
so I'm vegan, so it can be a challenge, and usually Mexican's a pretty easy one for me, but she didn't know what vegan meant, and it came out with like cheese and butter like all over it. So I was
oh
like,
no.
oh, okay, sweet. So
Okay, cool. So yeah, back to the question, and my camera's getting out of focus, but whatever, guys. I'll just be blurry. What is your like the your number one book that changed your life, or like this? If you can, yeah, pretty much your number one book,
my number one book that changed my life.
or your favorite book, like that you would
Yeah,
recommend to people, or yeah.
yeah, I would say so I'm big in like financial independence and things like that. So I would say like the book that I would recommend to people to read is like Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah, that's a big one. Yeah.
Yeah. Just because
Which
that's
one? The the cash flow
Robert Kiyos.
quadrant, or like
Yeah.
okay, okay,
His first one, Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad, the first one. Yep. Yeah, he
gotcha,
talks about the cash flow quadrant in there. Yeah.
gotcha. Um, so who is like a mentor or the one person that has changed your life the most? Have you ever had like a physical mentor or something that?
Man, I wish, man. I hear people talk about it and I'm so jealous. Like this goes back to me not knowing, you know, anybody when I got into this and really struggling because I didn't, and starting the podcast because I wanted to meet that person.
Yeah.
So to be honest, like
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be physical too. I mean, it could be like virtual too. Like,
yeah, just people that I look up to and aspire to. I'm gonna be weird, man. I'm gonna be weird and say that not weird in that it's gonna be a weird person. Weird as in like I can't really think of someone that like truly jumps out at me and was like, man, like they changed the way I think about things. Like there's been a lot of people that have done like little things like based on like their content and what they put out, but I think it's just been like and I don't need like that external motivation. I've never been that type of person. Like if I want to do something, I'm going to do it whether like there's somebody like making it sound cool or motivating me or not. Like I'm going to do it because I wanted to, not because somebody else said it was a good idea. But that's just me. So I think that kind of ties into why I can't really pick one person. I mean, I love people like Gary Vee and, you know, like I think like Will Smith and Terry Crews are like awesome people. And I love like what they do with their platforms. But, you know,
I get what you're saying. Like I just made a post about this, how like you should only listen to a few people if you're trying to take advice. Otherwise, you're almost like outsourcing your knowledge to everyone, because a lot of your creativity or the best stuff you'll make is going to come from your own head. It's going to come from your uniqueness. So who's been like the most surprising guest you have that, you know, has like impacted or like made you learn a lot based off their story? And then maybe people can check out the podcast too, if you can just throw in the number, if you remember.
Yeah. So this has been the cool thing about this podcast, because like you said, I don't really get like name brand people or like household names. Like these people, a lot of them, most of my people, I would say half of them are still working a day job and, you know, they're just doing something cool on the side. I mean, I have interviewed one of the coolest ones and probably most surprising ones. So a lady by the name of May Najafobadi. So don't ask me to spell her last name, but
that's a name.
Yeah, May. It was around episode 30-ish, somewhere around there, and she had like an Amazon business that was like starting to tank because Amazon started knocking off her product and moved their listing to the top and bumped hers down. So she got stuck with like all this inventory. So she started like looking for other things to do. And she started doing what's called after school enrichment classes. So basically like kids get out of school and their parents aren't ready to come pick them up yet. So the parents sign them up for these like after school classes. And I didn't have this when I was growing up, but apparently there's like a wide range of like classes. So she'll teach something like arts and crafts or like how to do some little trinket or something like that. And she like scaled the hell out of this thing just in her like school district, to where she started out at one school and she was doing it like one day a week. And so that's the cool thing about it. She does it 1 hour a day, 1 day a week, and the classes are for 8 weeks. So that's 8 hours total. And she was making $3,800 off of 8 hours of work.
That's a good side hustle. Yeah.
And then she scaled it, where she started going Monday through Friday, and then she hired people to do other schools. So she was bringing in like $50K a month off of this teaching kids for an hour a day after school.
50K a month. Wow. That is so, dude, like, how do you find these type of people, first of all?
Yeah. So yeah, it sounds like it could be super tough, right?
I mean,
Because
because some people, like, they probably want a show where they're not going to be interviewing like mega big people.
yeah.
It could be something like yours. So how do you find people who are like have unique stories that's relevant to your podcast content?
So I thought this would be super challenging. There's a couple ways, a couple hacks to this. First, I'll start with the non-hacks. Some of it has just been organic, right? So I have a booking page on my website, so people can scroll across my website because the readers of my website could also be the guest of my website just based on my content. They can stumble across that booking page and bam, there's a guest. And within Calendly, I have a kind of 3 or 4 questions built into my Calendly page where it does some screening for me, right? So I ask some qualifier questions. You pick one. So like I said earlier, do you still have a day job? Have you made at least $2,000? Have you went to be an entrepreneur within the past 3 years? Because I don't want somebody that's been an entrepreneur for 10 years. There's plenty of podcasts doing that really, really well. I don't need to try to compete with them. So there's some qualifiers there, and then I ask a couple more questions. So that's kind of how I can get some organically. And then if we look at like quote unquote like a little hack, I found some people that have similar podcasts to mine that produce a blog post with every episode, and I paid a guy on Fiverr just to go scrape the information off their site. And there I have I paid him $40 and I got 200 leads. So not a bad deal. So whenever I need guests, so I have a lot of this coming organically, or people like Lindsay will introduce me to other people to be on my podcast and stuff like that. And so I get a lot of that. But when I do need people, I'll just hop in that list. I'll shoot out like 5 emails. Probably 3 of the 5 will reply. There you go.
Yeah, Lindsay throwing some referrals, man. What a good friend. That is actually a really good strategy for people to pay someone to do the research for you. Because there's people who are better at us than who are better at that than us. Yep. And I know some clients right now, they're doing that. Some people actually do that. Like for the Dream 100, like they send out gifts to people they want to get on their show, whatever, or work with. Yep. They're actually paying someone to figure out their mailing address and stuff to send them gifts. But these are for like higher level interviews they're trying to get.
Yeah, it was an awesome deal. I mean, $20, he would go in there, and this is all on a Google sheet. So he would put in their first name, their last name, their email, a summary of their business, and a link to their website. And he did that for 200 people for $40.
Gotcha. So your target audience, would you say, can you describe it a little bit? Who you're trying to speak to?
Yeah, I think probably 90% of my audience still has a day job and they want to do something on the side. Probably half of them are okay with their day job and they just want something to supplement or express some creativity or something like that. And the other half wants to create freedom. And when I say freedom, I define that in a couple different ways. It could be like financial freedom, location freedom, like workplace freedom. So I think the other half is chasing that freedom, however they define that for themselves.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
And your strategy for finding guests is a really good strategy if you're starting out, to have like a guest booking section on the page, and you kind of just like ask questions like almost like you're asking, but obviously dependent on your niche. Like if you're doing like a cooking podcast, ask them like, do you actually cook or something? And having it also, guys, like in your outro, if you want to, you can have different outros for your show. And on one outro, you can have, if you want to be a guest on my show, just make it short. Reach me at this website or just go to the show notes.
And I put it in the show notes as well. I always have a link to the booking page in the show notes.
Cool.
Yep.
We got a question here. One sec. I used to side hustle hard. I would like to come on and talk about my return to straight hustling. No more side hustling, just straight hustling. Who was that? Deshauna Bang. She's awesome, by the way. I'm working on her with a podcast right now. So
hit me up. There's a form on the website.
There you go, guys. Go to his website, gritandhustle.co, right?
Yep.
Cool. So what is like what's coming up for you? Like anything exciting? Any, like, what's your plans? Yeah.
Yeah. So I wrote this blog post, this long ass blog post, and the reason of that, it was just to be the front end for a course funnel, right? So I said, all right, I'm going to create this piece of content that will hopefully get organic traffic. It's got affiliate stuff embedded all throughout it, so it'll make money from affiliates. And then I created a really technical course on podcasting that's gonna be on the back end. I actually finished that up this weekend. Right now, it's just when you click on the buttons, it'll just pop up to kind of reserve a spot, so to speak. But I'm created a really technical course. So for the people that aren't comfortable with the editing, like we were talking about, like the match loudness and all this. So that's related to podcasting, what's going on. That'll be done this weekend. That'll be up. Hopefully the content itself will constantly bring in people organically, and I will not have to do any paid promotion or anything like that. And I'll get some affiliate commissions off that as well, because there's affiliates like Adobe. I'm in their affiliate program. There's several of them embedded down throughout that document. And when it's 26,000 words long, you can create a lot of affiliate links in there. So that's coming on. And then as soon as this course is done, my focus is shifting. So I'll continue to do podcasts. That's just part of my quote unquote every day, but it'll shift to this other big project that I was talking about with this partner, which is much more in depth and much more technical. So I'll need to put some focus there.
Yeah, Lindsay, affiliates. Oh yeah, Mr. Affiliate Syndicate, my man. So for people who want to launch a podcast, who are getting into it, oh, what was this comment? Okay, that's why your link's not working.
Yeah.
Okay. So for people who want to start a podcast, what do you think is a reasonable amount of time that they dedicate? I know in the start, like, you got to like put a little more time to like get it up and running, but like how much time do you dedicate to your podcast? Do you batch it? Like one day you do all your interviews, whatever, or do you like just go with the flow?
Yeah, so I think it'll be different depending on your life situation. So for me, I do still have that 9 to 5 job. So I'm only recording between 6:30 p.m. and 9:30 p.m. So that when you look at my Calendly during the weekdays, that's the only time slots that you'll see open. So I record whenever people are available. Like I pretty much 7 days a week, there's some type of time slot open. So I record whenever. And I did everything from the recording to the blog post to the audio editing to the uploading, the whole 9 yards for the first 35 episodes. And then I outsourced the audio editing, the blog post, and the social media graphics. So I outsourced all of that to a friend that I met through the Kickstarter. So he lives in the Philippines. So he said he would do it for me. So we worked out a amazing deal for me, and he edits all that for me. So I would say before I outsourced it, I was spending probably about 15 to 20 hours a week on the podcast. And again, this is just a side thing for me. Like I've got the day job. So I was spending about 15, 20 hours a week on it, putting out 2 episodes a week. And now I spend a little bit less than that. And now I batch them. So I've got this hellacious Trello workflow. You'll see it if you go check out that blog post. Like I'm a Trello maniac and automation maniac. So I manage everything in Trello. So we do it all in there. So I'll batch like recording the intros and all that stuff. And I just pass him over those files once I'm done with them. And then he hops on the editing and does the blog post and all that. And then he passes it back to me. And after it's live, I do a couple things. So a lot less involved now than when I was doing it all myself.
Gotcha. So Milo said, you inspired me to take action and finally send a few emails for guests. Boom. First one sent. That's awesome, bro.
Done.
Awesome.
Well done, Milo.
Yeah, man. Just do that every day, bro. And then you're going to start crushing it. Yep. Milo Gordon, dude. Thanks for the comment, bro. That's awesome. So Lindsay said, Ryan is extremely organized. Trello. Yeah, I use Trello for some clients. And wait, there's another question here. Yeah, Trello is awesome. And also I hear like Taco. I don't know what that is. Asana. I use Asana as well. I prefer Trello. It's a little more like simpler to understand. Yeah. It's not so many conversations and teams and stuff. Like it's just pretty straightforward. But Asana does work for some people. Happy to show. Oh, Milo, you said you got a pretty interesting script. Happy to show everyone if it gets results. Yeah, man, just share it in the group.
Yep.
Uh,
Yeah, and if you want to see what my outreach looks like, again in that blog post, because seriously everything's in there. I put my whole script in there. Like, what do I say to people when I reach out? So you'll see all that in there as well.
Yeah,
so,
check that out, Milo. Go to his blog.
Yeah, and share yours, Milo. I'm curious to see what you say as well.
Cool. So from Deshauna, are you on WordPress? I'm assuming you are. That's most people.
Yeah, that's the WordPress Authority Pro theme by Studio Press.
Authority Pro theme
by Studio Press.
Okay,
Studio Press is like the company that puts the themes out.
Let me write note of that because I always look for new themes to use for people.
Yeah, it's a paid theme.
Yeah.
But it's I love the way it look, me personally, and it's built on the Genesis framework, so it's a pretty solid theme. I don't remember how much it costs, but I'm happy with it.
Yeah, it's awesome. I actually really like it, and I might use that for someone new soon. Okay. Okay, what questions we got here? I just launched my podcast yesterday. Felicia, what's up, Felicia?
What's up, Felicia?
Oh, yeah, I saw that on your live. That's awesome. I just launched my podcast yesterday. Very imperfect launch, but I didn't want to talk myself out of it. Got it up in 2 weeks. Awesome. Did you use Anchor for that, or how did you do that, Felicia? Just curious, because some people are using Anchor. Have you messed around with Anchor at all?
No, and I was actually telling Lindsay this today, like, because we were talking about him possibly putting some of his interviews out, and I told him that Anchor may be a good option, but if you're actually getting into podcasting and you want to like do something with it, I wouldn't recommend Anchor because this is one of the big things, and maybe it'll be important to you, maybe not, but you don't own any of your content when you put it on Anchor. A lot of people don't know this, but if you look into the terms and conditions of Anchor, like they could pull you at any minute off their platform and do whatever the hell they want with your content. Whereas with any other host, like you're in control of your content, you're in control of those files, that RSS feed, but on their platform, they own all of your content. So just consider that. You'll have to be the one to determine if that is important to you or not.
Yeah, that is really, really big because you want to keep all of your content for like as long as you're alive, pretty much. And from what I saw on Anchor, I mean, it's good if you're just recording from your phone, whatever, but I'm more of a quality type person.
Yeah, me too.
And I saw as well that they published to Amazon or to Alexa, I think, to flash briefings, which is pretty cool, even though flash briefings is limited to under 10 minutes. They have really good. Yeah, Anchor's cool, but I don't recommend it to most people right now. Maybe it'll get better. I don't know.
I didn't know Anchor actually started off as like, this is like the third iteration of that company.
Yeah, it was just literally, it was like a social, like a voice sharing app.
Yeah.
It wasn't meant for podcast, but I guess they're just like going on anything voice now.
Yeah.
I think because Gary Vee shouted them out, that's how they blew up. Can't wait to get my journal inspired. Boom, you just got a journal, dude. Who was that? I can't see who that was, but shout out to you. Nice and clean. Do WordPress plus SoundCloud podcasts have a chance at survival? Don't know what that means, but I don't really like SoundCloud for podcast guys because that's a music platform. I mean, you could have it on SoundCloud. It could help with your SEO and such, but yeah, I mean,
I wouldn't recommend it either. It's not like the file type isn't, and I'm not gonna act like I really know what the hell I'm talking about here, but the file type is not, or the audio type is not technically compliant. The type of audio that it puts out is not compliant with most platforms. So that's one thing to consider, and the instability of the company as a whole. Like if you're putting your content on there and you want it to be there for a long time, like the company has, and this has been for several years now, they've had a lot of cash flow problems to where like a couple times there's been speculation they were about to shut their doors. So just consider that when you decide to host on SoundCloud. Yeah,
SoundCloud has been trying to sell to everyone, and I think they've done a horrible job. Like SoundCloud has changed my life personally because I've been producing music since high school, and I've seen so many big artists like in electronic music, everything come from SoundCloud. Like it takes out the middleman. That's why I love SoundCloud. But I think they're doing a lot of things wrong. I think Facebook should buy SoundCloud. I know no one said that, but I think it would be a genius idea. So Facebook, they can get into podcasts that way, or like into music, because on
Mhm.
Facebook platform, there's no like music or podcast like integrated, which
Yeah.
is like, they could definitely do that. But SoundCloud, yeah. And also this, you have to like upgrade your plan to monthly to get to host on SoundCloud.
Yep.
So, I mean, if you want to just shoot it out, if your host does that, like Libsyn does it, then do it. It doesn't hurt, whatever, but it's not going to be
Yeah.
your main source of traffic. If you like Ryan's theme, you might like Tabor. Cool. Another theme. I use Adobe Audition. Felicia, cool. What's your podcast, Felicia? I'll check it out later.
Yeah, for
I'm
sure.
curious. Yeah, man. So is there anything else you want to share to people listening? Who are like, because a lot like Felicia and everyone here, like they're all starting a podcast. Like any like words of advice from when you started that you wish you would have known that you know now?
I would say, let me think about that. Is there anything that I wish I would have known?
Or like any expectations you have?
Yeah,
or like
I don't think there was anything that I wasn't expecting. I will say that you really need to go into this knowing that you have to play the long game on podcasting. Like you can't be in this to make a quick buck, because it ain't gonna come unless you have a huge audience already. Let me step back. Preface that with, if you have a huge social audience already, maybe
but
you
you're
can
probably already making a quick buck anyway. So yeah.
Right. So, but if you don't, if you're like me and you started out with a big fat goose egg on the audience, then, you know, you need to really play the long game and build up, like you guys were saying, the trust with the audience. You have to, and I think this is a big thing with podcasts. So you really need to be consistent, because I think people window shop podcast. And what I mean by that is they're going to scroll through like the show directory or whatever. They're going to search a keyword. So for me, like side hustle or something, I'll come up, they're going to click into that episode. They're going to see like how often I release episodes, because people don't want to invest themselves in a show and a person, things like that. If they see that I put out an episode like every 4 weeks or every 3 weeks, they're going to be like, oh man, this dude that never hardly put out content, like pass. But if they go in there and they're seeing like, shit, man, he's putting out an episode like once a week or twice a week in my case, and they're going to be much more likely to hit that subscribe button and invest in you and your show, because they know that every single week they're going to be getting content. So I think consistency is a huge piece of this.
Yeah, you want people to build a routine around your podcast, because if you're not publishing frequently, then they'll fall in love with another podcast and they'll forget about yours, because there's always someone who's going to be consistent more than you, and then they'll steal your listener pretty much.
And I think the consistency thing is important, because a lot of people are going to quit after like 20 episodes. So if you can make it, like your competitors that are there now, they're going to start dropping off, you know, the longer it gets. So you're going to, and those people that were listening to those shows are going to be looking for something else, and they could naturally come to you. So you really need to play the long game in this and wait this out and just consistently put out content. And one thing that, you know, you were asking, like something that I wish I knew, or maybe something that I did well. I would say build up a backlog of episodes before you launch. I think that's important. So I had like 15 episodes already recorded before I even launched. Because I did launch 7 in the first week, one every single day. And then I wanted to have some in the queue for like, if I had any, I didn't know how easy it was going to be to get guests and things like that, or if people would say yes. So I wanted to have some backlog there. So I would suggest like if you're going to post once a week, have like a month or 2 in the queue. That would only be like 8 episodes, right? So just have like 2 months in the queue, and then it's going to make your life a lot less stressful, because if you have a hiccup and you can't record for like a week or 2, like no big deal. You've got some ammunition.
Cool. Lindsay says, #take action, #be consistent, #never give up. What's up? You know what's up. So Azaria, I'll look into your blog and website once I get a chance. Cool. And our charity is starting a podcast. That's really awesome, by the way. I remember. And we want to do a journal too. Yeah, dude, try to model what Ryan's doing.
Yeah. Go steal it. Go download a copy and copy it. I don't care.
There you go. Charity podcast. It's very interesting. One of my clients was doing that, but they were like Silicon Valley charity, and it works very, very, very well.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by charity podcast?
Well, so Azaria, let me be more detailed if you can. because I kind of forget. Sorry, but he has a charity, and he wants a podcast to promote the charity. You can get so many local interviews, man, and like people who are already donating to the charity, and they'll use that to promote it. Because if someone's already donating to your charity, they want to promote it as well. So I mean, a lot of charities aren't utilizing podcasts, man. So I'm excited for what you create. I got a few more questions for you, but let's see the comments. Thanks for this. I just came up with my slogan: hustle, happy, and hungry for my Capable Woman podcast.
There you
That's
go.
awesome.
Jump on it.
Dang, you're giving people ideas here.
Now don't spend too much time making a logo. I think people spend way too much time making logos. Don't even worry about that. Just create some damn content. There you go.
Because you can always change it. You know? Trying to batch some episodes now. Yeah, bang. There Felicia, did you I mean, I usually recommend people when they launch a podcast to have a few like out the gate, because then let's say someone listens to your podcast and they like it. If you just have one episode, then you're kind of leaving them out in the dry.
That's why I put out 7, right? I put out 1 every single day.
Yeah, that's what everyone should do. And then that'll help boost your stats. iTunes sees that you're getting downloaded a lot, and it'll get you it could get you a new and noteworthy section. So what do we got here? We're going to be interviewing business owners, social media influencers, and other cool people. Cool, man. Let me know how that goes. I have 4 up now. Awesome. What is your favorite time length for a podcast?
What do you mean timeline?
What do you find is ideal for your audience as far as
the length
of episode? Yeah.
Okay. Cool. I think right around that 40-minute mark, between 35 and 40 minutes.
Okay, cool. So I remember we talked about this on Messenger about keyword stuffing.
Yep. Yeah.
What is your it's kind of like I have a method that I was telling people that it helps boost your SEO, but now it's like I'm very hesitant on promoting that method because of what's happening right now with iTunes delisting people who are keywords, pretty much guys that if you keyword stuff for example, your author field, you can put inspired by, Gary Vaynerchuk, Tony Robbins, just name a bunch of names. And if anyone searches that name, you'll pop up because iTunes uses that as SEO, which is search engine optimization. But now they're delisting people who are doing that from what I hear. I'll
tell you how I found out about this. So again, I don't want to keep pushing that blog post, but in that blog post, you'll see where I outline how one day I was listening to a podcast on the way home from work, and I heard this guy talk about that. He put a couple keywords. He didn't stuff it. He just put a couple keywords in his author field and his title field, and it drastically shot up his number of downloads. I was like, shit. As soon as I got home, this was probably 2 months ago.
Okay.
That I listened to that podcast, and then I immediately went home and was like, all right, what the hell am I going to put? I'm putting something in there right now. And no shit, after the 3rd day, nothing had happened. But then on the 4th day, I got the screenshot that I put in the blog post is 358% increase, but it got up to 450% increase in the number of downloads in 4 days.
What were it's because what keywords specifically were you using?
So it used to say Ryan Helms. I changed it to Ryan Helms, creator of the Side Hustle Journal, solopreneur, and financial independence enthusiast. So I was picking up a lot of side hustle, because put that word in there, and then I was picking up financial independence. And then in the title field, it was Hustle to Freedom podcast. Everyday people creating extraordinary side hustles. So really just I didn't really stuff anything in there. All I did was the author field. That title was always in there. All I did was add those couple words to the author field. And I don't know if iTunes will look at it as keyword stuffing, to be determined. I don't look at what I did as keyword stuffing, but it's because it's
relevant.
Yeah, it's I actually did create the Side Hustle Journal. I actually am into financial independence. So to me, it's relevant. But what people are saying now, and this just came out last week. I made a post on Reddit, outlining what I did to get that big number of download increase.
Yeah, I have that. You sent it to me. You guys should read that.
I got fucking bashed, man, because these are some old school podcasters that are by the book, and thankfully they started dropping all these links on me like, this is just happening today, this is horrible advice, nobody listen to this. And I was like, holy, I'm just trying to help people here.
Yeah.
Like, hold up. But no, and I listened to some of the resources that they provided, and it's all kind of like, I don't know. There's not even a blog post on this yet. I don't even know where people are getting this information, but it's like they have like insider information where people are getting their podcasts like delisted. And it seems like, based on the several podcasts that I've listened to kind of talking about this, it seems like they're mainly going after people that are launching new podcasts.
Yeah.
So when you're submitting a podcast through Podcast Connect, which is Apple's platform, that's when they're kind of filtering that. So if they're seeing at that point of submission a bunch of keywords and things like that in there, they'll like deny you or something. The reason that I didn't change mine yet is because there's some huge podcasts out there right now that are stuffing way beyond what I'm doing. Like, go look at like Amy Porterfield. She's got like 1,200 reviews on her podcast, gets like 200,000 to 300,000 downloads per episode, and her author field is just stuffed. James Altucher, same thing. He says he gets like 200,000 to 250,000 downloads per episode, keyword stuffed.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting back just watching those guys. Like, if I see them like in mass start changing theirs, then I'm going to change mine.
Yeah. Because I mean, iTunes would, especially with those podcasts, they wouldn't delist them immediately, because then they're going to fuck over their listeners' experience. They would probably give them a warning. And then if that happens, then I'm sure they would like write about it or tell their audience.
Yeah.
So it's funny because a lot of those, I looked at the Reddit article too, and those podcasts were talking about it. I think they were all podcast hosting platforms that talked about it. Like Blueberry talked about it, Libsyn talked about it. Yeah. So I mean, they're just commenting, but there's been no like official news from iTunes. So
I didn't act on it. I just kind of, I'm sitting back and just kind of watching. But if you guys are starting out right now, launching a podcast, I would not add any keywords at all in there right now. No. I would just sit back and kind of see how it shakes out. Maybe down the road you can, but as of right now, I wouldn't do it. But I'm not changing mine right now because it's out there.
The people who are getting away with it are, they already had a podcast for so long. So if you guys are publishing one now, just submit it like just a basic show title. And Felicia, keywords in the description, iTunes,
they don't search it.
The keywords are coming from either your author fields, your show title, like the show title, and then the podcast title as well.
Yep.
So that's a big
So if you like put a bunch of stuff in the description field, or if your host has like a keyword section, iTunes doesn't use it, but don't not utilize those because other platforms may use it. So keep that in mind. Like, iTunes, although the biggest, Apple Podcast, whatever you want to call it, although they're the biggest, they're not the only one out there. And if anybody is going to use all the data you provide, it's Google. And I see their platform is going to continue to grow with the recent launch of their app. So I think they're going to use the data much more efficiently than Apple. So just keep that in mind when you create your description and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. iTunes used to dominate, but lately it's been going a little more and more down. Other apps coming up, Overcast, Pocket Cast.
Yep.
So cool. She said, thanks for tuning in, Felicia. This is a big question, so let's try to break it down here. Or if it's more of a statement. So if you have your transcript available, gotcha, Nick Hill. I can't see the question in there, but I got you, bro. I'll read through that later. Cool, guys. Any more questions? I don't want to take up too much of your time, Ryan. But if you guys have any more questions before we sign off, ask us now. If you guys need help with anything, your struggles you're going with right now with your launch of your podcast, I know some of you have a podcast up. If you want any advice for anything you're struggling with, how's the experience of podcasting been for you? Like, how has it changed you as a person?
That's a tough question. I don't
Yeah.
know if it's had like, some big monumental impact. Like I feel like I could sit up here and be like, "Oh man, it's changed my life in all these ways."
Well, you're
I
you're
think,
also like early in the game too, so
yeah, exactly. I think there's still a long way to go as far as like what it can do for me. So I think that's part of it. But like I mentioned earlier in the interview, it's been great to me already because I've met so many amazing people, and that's exactly why I started a podcast, for no other reason than to meet amazing people. And check, it has done that. I'm actually partnering, like I said earlier, with one of my past guests, actually episode 14. If you want to go listen to that, his name was Mark Campbell, software developer that had a side hustle last year that brought in an extra 157K. So yeah, I'm partnering with him. We have a project in the work. So hell, so far I could quit podcasting right now and I would be happy with what I got out of it.
yep, there you go. There you go. Cool. Let's see what we got here. Azaria says, thanks for your time, man. Thanks for tuning in, bro.
Yeah.
Does Ryan have a course coming out? You have your podcast course coming out, right? Tell us about
it's basically so if you want to know what the course is going to look like, what it's going to cover, go read that blog post that I put in the comments. I'm literally just recapturing. I'm going over that information in more detail in video form. So you can get everything that is going to be in this course in that blog post. That's why it's so damn long.
Okay, gotcha. Right here, quick question from Deshauna. Where is your journals printed and published? I think you said China. And should I hold the journal for after the podcast gets rolling?
You could, because then that could be something that you could use to like build some hype, right? So you could leverage whatever audience you have from the podcast to help launch the journal. So that's something you'll need to consider for sure, is if you got any type of audience with the podcast, could that help the success of the launch?
Cool. Thanks for the question, Deshauna. Yeah, that about, dude, I really appreciate you coming on here, providing value for people. For sure. Go check out his blog. It sounds like a really valuable blog, 26,000 words. That's a lot. So go through it. If you guys want to know his Trello process, his podcasting process, go through it. Because did you learn all this yourself, or did you ever take a course, or is this like just learning from experience?
Self-taught experience.
Awesome, guys. There you go. There you go, for the man himself. I don't see any more questions here, but if there's anything else you want to share, if not,
nope,
we can just
I'm good to go, man. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Like I said, the only thing I would like is for people to check out that blog post if they want to. Nothing for me out of it. You could get everything that you could ever want to know for free. That's why, again, it's so damn long. But check it out, read it. Hopefully it'll answer some questions you have. If you have any questions at all about anything, just add me on Facebook, shoot me a message. Happy to help out. I'm here to provide value and not try to steal all your money. So more than happy to help you out.
Cool. There we go, guys. There we go. Thank you. Great value from Deshauna. Awesome, guys. Drop the hearts, drop the team live. Give me a hashtag Showtime if you made it this far. And guys, signing off. Thanks so much, Ryan. I appreciate you getting on here. This is my first Facebook Live for the group, so you broke my virginity here.
Awesome.
And man, thanks so much, man. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, take care. See ya. Bye.